Rabbi Blech, I cannot believe that I have you on this video call. I'm so privileged. Thank you so much for even taking the time. I know you're busy, but I truly appreciate having you here. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and my honor, and it's a wonderful opportunity to share a story with the people who will be watching this. I think it's a story that's historic. I know that there are people who are biographers of Ernest Hemingway who heard the story through others already, and they say this is extremely important in understanding the author who won a Nobel Prize, a Pulitzer Prize, and is considered by many to be the greatest American novelist. And for some weird reason, I had the opportunity, the merit, the schut, as we say in Hebrew, to meet Ernest Hemingway.
How did that come about, Rabbi? How did that even happen? Why did he agree? Because he's not Jewish, obviously. He was not Jewish, I should say. And how did he agree, and how did this meeting come about, really?
As I always like to say, when things happen in my life that are unbelievable, this is from God because God wanted this to happen. You're absolutely right. It almost sounds like a joke is coming up when I say, rabbis meet Ernest Hemingway. And
Right,
me,
right.
yes, you were absolutely correct. He was Jewish. And how could such a thing happen? Aside from anything else, he lived at the time of this meeting in Cuba.
Right.
And what in the world would Rabbi Blech, that's me, be doing there? And how did the story take place? But really, what I want so very much to share with the people is what we discovered about Ernest Hemingway, because he has a reputation that is far different than what came across when we met with him. Nobody would ever accuse Ernest Hemingway of being a theologian and having a wonderful
No.
religion, or in particular Judaism. And this story is actually mind blowing. So let me ask you a question. What
Please,
does
please.
Rabbi Blech have to do with Ernest Hemingway? And tell you that in 1956, I got smicha, I became ordained. I know that is a long, long
That's
time,
a long time.
ancient rabbi already. God, I'm still blessed with my faculties. So, two other uh, newly ordained uh, young men, together with me, decided it's time to celebrate. We had been working, I can't begin to tell you what it means to work in order to receive the rabbinic degree. And I mean, from the time I was 6 years old, I went to Yeshiva, and I would say to you, with no vacations. And finally, we get finished. So the three of us decided, let's do something exotic. Let's do something really different. Now, today, you would go around the world. Exotic for us in those days was this was pre-Castro Cuba. We said, let's not just go to Miami. Let this really be a blowaway vacation, and we will go to Havana. We'll go to Cuba.
Okay.
So we go there and we hire a Yiddish speaking taxi driver. And I could tell you story upon story of that, but that's for a different time.
In Cuba, you hired a
Thank you.
Yiddish speaking. That itself sounds like almost like an anecdote.
Yes. So he picked us up, he drove us to various places. And one day, as he's driving, we go by a magnificent estate. And we say, that looks beautiful. Who lives there? He says, that's Ernest Hemingway's estate.
Wow.
So we said to him, stop the car. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you want? But he says it in Yiddish. It was and he said, what are you crazy? You want to try to get in there?
Sugar. Yeah.
Say, with the chutzpah of youth at that time, as a young man, I had a wonderful idea. We went to the guardhouse and I said, would you kindly tell Mr. Hemingway that three rabbis from New York are here to see him?
I can only imagine his
I
reaction.
figured he is going to say to himself, I don't know any rabbis. What could they possibly want from me? Or maybe he might say, this is the key to a new book, story, novel that I could write, whatever. The taxi driver could not believe that the answer of the guard was, I just contacted Mr. Hemingway. He's meeting with the American ambassador right now, but if you'd be good enough to wait a little while, 20
Wow.
minutes or so, he will be willing to see you.
He must have been intrigued. He must have been intrigued to see.
Exactly. Exactly. This was something that you said to me, how could it happen? I'm saying to myself, Hemingway is wondering, what are the rabbis and who are they? So, we were ushered into his presence. And I must tell you that the meeting took a turn after about 15 minutes, because at first he was a little cold. And what he really wanted to see was, who are these people? Is it worth my while to talk to them? Right. He began just to ask, are you familiar with my work? And did you understand what I was getting at? And this book, and this book, and so on. He was giving us a bchina, another test, just to see whether it paid for him to continue the dialogue. But I was an English major. The other two rabbis were brilliant, and he was impressed. And at about 15 minutes after, he said, okay, let me tell you the truth. I was testing you. I want to see who you are.
Right.
Pass the test. I am intrigued because I am not known for spirituality, but I want to share something with you. And I want to tell you that my whole life, even though I was never religious and I was Catholic, but not an observant Catholic, I always wondered about the role of God in our lives and religion. And I, at various times, began to pursue more knowledge about different religions. Mm-hmm. There were even times, he said, and this is incredible, that I chose for a week or so to live by the precepts of a particular religion.
Really?
Wow. What it would do in my life. And he said, I always wondered what it would be like if I could meet rabbis and talk to them. So God must have sent you here. And I would like to make an observation that I have about Judaism. And this is the real most important point of the discussion. Because here is a man so brilliant that, again, he won Nobel Prize, Pulitzer Prize, and he understood something about how Judaism is different than the other major religions in the world, almost all of them, that most Jews would never realize, would not be aware of. He said to us, tell me if I'm right, but from my studies, I see that Judaism is different in one major regard. He says, to the best of my knowledge, almost all religions other than Judaism are primarily concerned with death. They are ways of preparing ourselves for the mystery beyond, for what happens to us after we die. And their priests, ministers, or what have you, all the religious leaders are, again, functionaries, preparation for death. And they use fear of death as a way of getting people to become a member of their tribe, so to speak. So I said to him, Mr. Hemingway, with all due respect, I wonder if I might share with you something to validate what you have just now said in a remarkable way. Mm-hmm. Do you know that in the Bible, Jews follow this to this very day? There is a remarkable law. Kohanim were the original rabbis. Right. Kohanim translates into priests. And originally it was a tribe, descendants of Aaron, and they were the religious leaders. Right. The Bible says, and to this day this is true, that Kohanim are not permitted to come in contact with the dead. Mm-hmm. Kohen is not permitted to go to a cemetery, to be in a funeral chapel, to be near a dead body. Right. The Bible doesn't explain why. Jewish commentators explain. Because these are the religious leaders, and what the Bible wanted was that the emphasis for religious leaders not be death, so that they not even come in contact with the dead, and therefore they will have to put their primary emphasis on life,
Life.
living, and the living.
Right.
And he stroked his chin and he said, "That is remarkable. I have never heard that." So I want you to know, in my lifetime, to receive a compliment from a man of his stature, because
Incredible.
he told him a Dvar Torah. I told him a Jewish insight. But what is more amazing is that he came to this on his own. And
Right.
he was able to perceive that this is the glory and the greatness of Judaism. Unfortunately, I must say, there are many Jews today, in spite of the fact that the Torah expressed this idea so beautifully, even in law, whose sole connection with Judaism is the Kaddish, the things that have to do with death. And I, as a rabbi, would say to them, and I've been a rabbi ever since the time I met Hemingway, my whole life has been dedicated to trying to teach Jews that you are not basically connecting with God so that you can get heaven after you die, but so that you can get a heavenly life here on earth. It's all about life. And Judaism's key words are uvocharta b'chayim, and you shall choose life. There's a punchline to this.
Sure.
Amazing punchline. The story shouldn't be told unless I add what happened subsequently. It was years later, but I don't know how many of the listeners are aware that Ernest Hemingway died by his own hand,
Yes.
by taking a gun and putting it into his mouth.
Unfortunately, yeah.
In other words, unfortunately, in other words, he was beaten by life. He could not cope with life. I sometimes wonder if we would have had an opportunity to stay with him longer, or perhaps we could have influenced him in a more powerful way to act on what he intellectually understood about Judaism. But this is a fascinating insight into the mind of a giant who only peripherally became involved with religions and did concern himself with the ideas of various religions, and immediately put his finger on the essence of Judaism. Amazing story.
I think it's incredible, Rabbi, and you being part of that story, I think is just fascinating. I'm so happy you were able just now to share it, because, like you said, a lot of people may not truly know everything that went on and why he saw you, and why he agreed to see, and why he said what he said. Because, like you said, it's interesting for a non-religious, non-observant person of his caliber to arrive at the, like you said, the main point, which a lot of Jewish people may not even think of it from their perspective. Like you said, Kaddish or anything else becomes more traditional. Unfortunately, we see each other at weddings and at funerals, so you kind of you kind of memorize a lot of stuff that's going on. But then you measure someone on that caliber, you think about what he arrived at and what the main focus of the religion is. So what you teach, like you said, over 50 years or whatnot.
Mike, I almost think that God made this story happen to me and with me at the very beginning of my rabbinic career, so that I could be touched and inspired by it and guide my entire mission in life as a rabbi by this concept that Ernest Hemingway discovered as well.
Rabbi, thank you so much for sharing this. I hope to do some more such memory discoveries with you. And I think this was fascinating. I think a lot of people are going to really want to listen to this and learn these facts.
It's a delight. It's a delight speaking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Speaking to tens of thousands of people.
I'm sure.